Support of the death penalty. Stated in the article, the death penalty deters crime and saves lives by David B. Malhausen. Roughly 67% of Americans are in support of the death penalty. The death penalty is the practice of execution as punishment for criminal offense. Majoring in criminology, I have to be well informed with capital punishment, and it's within my own opinion to agree with the 68% in support of it. Capital punishment, also known as the death penalty, serves a great use and shouldn't be abolished. Three main reasons for support of the death penalty are morality, deterrence, and retribution. Regarding morality, it is argued that the death penalty goes against the Eighth Amendment in referring to the use of cruel and unusual punishments. But the methods used aren't always cruel, and in the eyes of criminology and retributivists, the punishment needs to meet the severity of the crime. In The Death Penalty For and Against by authors Louis Pojman and Jeffrey Raymond, explain the retributivist theory as criminal C violates an innocent person's right to life by threatening it or killing them. The threat to the person constitutes a grave offense, but by taking the person's life constitutes a criminal offense. Attempting to constitutes a capital offense. Attempting to take the person's life from a moral point of view is equivalent to taking his or her own life. Therefore, criminal C deserves to be put to death for the offense. The death penalty supposedly takes the rights of life away from a person, but that person in turn had taken the right away from another. A statement made by Bruce Fein, constitutional lawyer and general counsel for the Center for Law and Accountability, from article Death Penalty on Procon.org, was, abolitionists may contend that the death penalty is inherently immoral because governments should never take human life no matter what the provocation. The death penalty honors human dignity by treating the defendant as a free moral actor able to control his own destiny for good or for ill. It does not treat him as an animal with no moral sense. In other words, the offender is not treated cruelly or demeaned in any way. Regarding both statements, the offender, his or herself, had a sense of morals as well, yet still committed the act, and should therefore be prepared to receive a punishment that equals the severity of the crime in which he or she committed. Going off morality factor brings to light the other product of use of capital punishment, retribution. Retribution goes hand in hand with morality on a life for a life. Punishment equals the weight of the crime. Retribution is just more than justice served equally. The death penalty provides closure for the families of the victims. A quote for an article, This House Supports the Death Penalty, from iDebate.org. Mary Heincamp, a Chicago woman whose mother's killer faced the death penalty before the state governor commuted the sentences to life in prison, stated, "We were looking forward to the death penalty. I'm just so disappointed in the system." Other victims' families deemed the decision a mockery that justice is not done. Most families feel as if justice isn't being given for the loss of their loved ones when the death penalty is passed over for a short sentencing or life in prison. These families are uncomfortable knowing these offenders are still breathing, not so much on the idea that it's a life for life, but the idea that it's possible for them to be released, cause harm again on others or as them as well. All around, the death penalty provides the greatest product it can give by following after the other two, deterrence. The effectiveness the death penalty has majority of the time is deterrence of criminal behaviors and ensuring safety. Rather than having a criminal reoffend, a capital punishment deters this from occurring for obvious reasons. In turn, this plays as an example to others on the consequences for their actions. Recent studies have shown that for each execution there is a deter between 3 to 18 murders. In the period between 1977 and 1996, Professor Joanne M. Shepard of Emory University found supporting evidence from a previous study conducted by Shepard and two other colleagues in which they found that executions had a significant negative relationship with murder incident, and for one execution there is a deterrence of 18 murders. What Shepard had found was three supporting evidence. First, for each execution there is 3 less murders on average. Secondly, it prevents the murders of 1 Caucasian, 1.5 African Americans, and 0.5 persons of other races. Thirdly, shorter waits on death row increase deterrence. Studies carried on after this evidence was brought to light have seemed to support and find more evidence, such as the executions with electrocutions has shown the greatest support in deterrence. There is no exact statistical evidence that supports the deterrence factor, but as stated on deathpenaltycurriculum.org, capital punishment is likely to deter more than other punishments because people fear death more than anything else. They fear most death deliberately inflicted by law and scheduled by the courts. Whatever people fear most is most likely to deter most. In general, as suggested by most supporters of the death penalty, their argument on supporting or being against capital punishment is more along the lines being on faith rather than based on faith than facts. As a criminologist in the making, I agree in supporting it since it goes along with the information I am learning. Punishment needs to be swift, severe, and certain. True punishment causes great deterrence, which sounds just like what capital punishment is.